Heafy. In this podcast, we will be learning from Diarmuid Fitzgerald about the act of writing and what practical steps you can take to sustain your creative writing. Diarmuid is a published author. He mainly writes poetry, but he also writes novels and short stories. He has published 3 books: Thames Way, A Thousand Sparks, and The Singing Hollow. His books are available from Alba Publishing, www.albapublishing.com. You can follow Diarmuid on his own YouTube channel at Diarmuid Fitzgerald, on his website www.diarmuidfitzgerald.com, and on Instagram at dwriters, that is with an S. Welcome to the Diarmuid Show.
Thank you.
I just called it the Diarmuid Show, Diarmuid. I didn't mean for you to take over my show, but that's just how we're going with it today. We're just going to roll with it.
Let's just run with it.
So tell me, Diarmuid, is it a good idea for a writer to set up a daily or a weekly goal, in your opinion?
Yes, I think it is a good idea to set up a daily or a weekly goal. So if a writer sets up a daily goal, they can actually get writing done. So it could be like 500 words a day, 200 words a day, even as little as 100 words a day if they need to. So the main thing about setting up a goal is to like draw you in and get you into the act of writing.
Okay.
And as you do it, you find whether you can actually achieve that goal or not. So the idea is get into the process of it. And if you're in the process of actually writing, you might find, say for example, you can't do 500 words, it's too much.
Okay.
Then you can drop it down to say like 100, 200. And there might be other days where you get 1,000 words done.
Yeah.
And you see what works for you. That's the main thing with that there.
Okay.
Some people, their lives may be so busy that they can't do it on a daily basis, to just have too much going on. So what I would suggest then in those circumstances is that they just do a weekly goal. So
Yeah.
if they carve out, say like an hour on a Saturday morning, and maybe they do like 1,000 words or 2,000 words, they can do that.
Okay.
The main thing is, if you try and hit your goals, you'll find yourself through daily habits and actions getting there. That's the main thing with that.
Okay, thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
And how much time should a writer make for creative writing? What blocks can a writer face when they want to do creative writing?
I suppose the answer is how long is a piece of string, but I would say ideally, if you can, 30 minutes a day, if that's possible, because that way you're getting into the flow state and then you can actually get a substantial amount of writing. Again, you have to cut your cloth to measure. Some people can't do that.
Yeah.
So I'd start off with as little as 5 minutes a day, and that's just to begin the habit of writing. You mightn't do much within 5 minutes, but like you're on the table, you're sitting, you're handwriting, you're typing, knock off all social media, turn off the Wi-Fi function, distractions on your mobile phone, your whatever you're using, your device, and then just do writing. And it doesn't matter what you're writing. It could be the most horrendous, crappy type of writing, as long as you're actually doing the writing, and then you're just building the habit.
Okay.
And if you keep at that will work for you. I find journaling works for me. Another thing then is distractions. So we can convince ourselves, we're doing like research on social media. So we're like on Facebook, like, I'm checking up other writers, and then 2 hours go by, and then you're kind of going, I got nothing done.
Yeah.
So the main thing is you need to be disciplined. It has to be actual writing, creative writing, not research. Research is a totally other different ball game there. So that's what I would do. And I say if you actually do that consistently, you get what I call bragging rights. So say for example you do 500 or actually 300 words a day.
Okay.
After 365 days you will have over 100,000 words.
Wow.
That's the first draft of a novel. And then I say you get bragging rights when you go to a party. So you go to a dinner party and someone says, what do you do? And so, I'm a writer. And so, have you written a book? And you can say, actually, yes, I have. Now, you mightn't have the book published, but you actually have it written.
Yeah.
So you get bragging rights. And that's because you were consistent doing your writing every day. Again, the book might be the most horrendous piece of crap. But who cares? It's a start. It's better to have a first draft than no draft.
So I think you've answered some of this already, but if a writer is having difficulty in getting time, what practical steps could they do to make the time?
For me, what worked, the biggest transformation thing for me was scheduling your week.
Okay.
So I have a diary, and usually every Sunday evening I sit down and I actually plan out my week of what I'm actually going to do in the activities.
Okay.
Because I found when I was actually, say, doing the creative writing, I got the guilt of, I should be looking at my bank statement, or I should be fixing the car, or I should be doing the other practical life stuff. Life admin, and then I was doing that, it's like, I should be doing the creative writing. So I was feeling these terrible guilts constantly. So I said, look, schedule time for the admin stuff, time to ring the band, time to do whatever it is, time for exercise. So I have it in, like, I get up at 6 usually at most mornings, and then I write, meditation, and then it's writing, and then it's whatever. And then I go through the entire week and I will write down what I'm doing.
Okay.
And last year I was able to write a book proposal doing that in the mornings, half an hour writing, and as working a full-time job, doing all that, busy life, loads of other stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I choose to do my writing in the morning because when I go to work, I've already achieved one of my main goals.
Okay.
So even if I have a bad day in work, I've actually achieved one of my own personal goals.
Yeah.
So that actually gives me a sense of completeness there. So when I got into the whole scheduling thing, I met a huge personal resistance. I was like, oh my God, I'm like signing my life away to this cage of things. But actually I found it worked really well. And then the good thing about scheduling is you can tick off as you do it, and you find what works and what doesn't work. So again, writing in the morning worked for me. That may not work for somebody else.
Okay.
They might have to do it in the evening time, lunchtime. They might have to do it some other time during the day. And the thing is, the schedule it's flexible. Life happens. Say for example, you have a car crash or somebody gets sick and they have to go to the hospital. Like, all the way goes out the window.
Yeah.
Life takes over. Like, that's fair enough. That's priorities will change. So I would highly recommend that, and then try to stick with it. And then if you review and you tick off what you do, you'll find what works and what doesn't work, and you'll find if there's barriers or obstacles.
Really interesting. It could work for other things other than creative writing as well. Is there any last tip you can give for a writer who's starting out and doesn't know what to write about?
Yeah, so this is a common problem, is somebody wants to write but they have no clue on what they want to write about. So I would just get a diary or a journal, a blank one preferably, and then just start journaling every day.
Okay.
So just write a page, half a page, and again, it doesn't matter what you write, you just doodling, drawing, whatever, you're just throwing down ideas on the page, and then it comes out, and do this on a consistent basis, and then what you'll find is you'll be drawn to certain things. So let's say you're kind of more into non-fiction and sport, you might journal about, the game, the match, the whatever.
Yeah.
And then over time you might notice certain trends and patterns of, you like talking about politics or certain events, well, then maybe you might want to write about that.
Okay.
And if you're more of a fiction-y writer or say into poetry, you might be drawn towards that. So when you look over what you've actually written and you say you journaling for about 3 or 4 months, you will kind of notice certain themes and patterns, and maybe that's an area you might want to go down and look at. And generally speaking, if you're also a reader as well, and you should be a reader if you're a writer, is what kind of books are you naturally drawn towards?
Okay, yeah.
So if you're naturally drawn towards non-fiction books, well, maybe non-fiction is your area. If you're naturally drawn towards, like romantic stories, well, then maybe that's your area. And you could start there. And here's the thing with writing, you can always pivot. So that book proposal I talked about was a non-fiction book, which I had never done non-fiction before. I'd always done either poetry or novels, and that was new.
Okay.
But the skills of writing transfer across.
Okay, interesting. Thanks so much for your time, Dermot. A lot to digest there, and we look forward to seeing you again on the podcast.
Thank you, and thanks for the hire of the room.